In the original USA release of Persona 1, the localization team made a very interesting design choice, specifically for the character Mark. Instead of him having a beanie, he has a cap. Also, he's black. This is 50 Persona 1 facts. There may be mild spoilers here and there. For the US localization of Persona 1, called Revelations Persona, a lot of the changes and translations make it seem like Persona 1 takes place in the United States. For this reason, the characters are given more Western names and looks. This is also a potential explanation as to why they made Mark black, since there are significantly more black people in the States than in Japan, I guess. On the topic of localizations, there are a lot of mistakes in the dialogue. The demon talked to you. No talk to bowls. A fan favorite, Mark danced crazy. You know the iconic, I am thou, thou art I. I'm you, you're me. The list goes on. If you've played Persona 5 and have eaten at the Big Bang Burger fast food place, you may have heard this song. This is actually a remix of the Satomi Tadashi Pharmacy theme song from Persona 1. In Persona 5, guns are one of the separate weapons you can use in order to deal damage to enemies, but this mechanic actually goes back to Persona 1. Each character can equip certain types of weapons in order to light up demons, though each character can only equip firearms that are compatible with them. For instance, the protagonist can only use submachine guns. Additionally, you are able to equip different types of ammo for your firearms. For example, you can fire Cupid rounds, which inflict the charm debuff on enemies. In the Snow Queen quest, you may run into some very interesting torture devices. Milk. In the modern Persona games, only the main character can swap and wield multiple personas. But in Persona 1, every party member has this ability, though there is a restriction. The personas must be of a certain affinity in order to receive buffs or penalties. For instance, Ellie's best personas are those of the Judgment Arcana, which means she can wield them and may even recover HP if her health is low. Personas with bad affinity with Ellie are those of the Magician Arcana, which means she can equip them but she cannot use their skills in battle. Speaking of Persona Arcanas, the main character, whose somewhat canon name is Noyatoto, actually follows the Emperor Arcana, different from the modern games where the protagonist usually follows the Fool. So, who actually follows the Fool Arcana? Well, technically everybody does. Personas of the Fool Arcana have an affinity of best when equipped by any party member. But why is that? In Persona 1, personas of the Fool Arcana are very special. In fact, they are actually considered mistakes, as they can only be summoned through a fusion accident. But don't fret, as personas of the Fool Arcana are some of the strongest in the game. They have a relatively low SP cost and resistance to all attacks. There are also only 3 Fool personas. One way you can guarantee a fusion accident that results in a persona of the Fool Arcana is by closing, then opening the game. Walk exactly 101 steps without being attacked, and then head directly into the Velvet Room. Performing a fusion should result in a persona of the Fool Arcana, assuming the summon was within level. If you've played Persona 3, you may recognize the name Nanjo. This is because the Kirijo family company from Persona 3 was originally a part of the Nanjo group, a conglomerate of companies working under one name, but the Kirijo family has split off from them. In Persona 1, Kei Nanjo is the son of the CEO of the Nanjo family. Unlike the mainline games, in Persona 1 and 2, the max party size is 5 instead of the now traditional 4. While as cool as this is, there is a restriction when it comes to the party. You cannot swap out party members. Once you select all 5 characters to be in your party, that's your team for the rest of the game. But how exactly do you obtain these party members? Well, depending on the route you play, the game will automatically assign you 2 or 3 of your party members. In order to choose the rest, the characters will eventually pop up as you progress through the early game, but you must have room for at least 1 party member. In the Sebek route, the characters appear in this order: Hidehiko, Ellie, Ayase, and Ryuji. If you reject any character, there won't be any opportunity for them to join again. As just mentioned, Ryuji is a recruitable party member in the Sebek route, but he is actually one of the most difficult characters to recruit. The steps to recruiting Ryuji Kido involves talking to a number of NPCs that are located across the map. Then you must reject every other party member from joining your party. This means you're gonna have to go through a major dungeon and boss fight down a teammate. Only then can you meet and recruit Ryuji. But why would I go through all that trouble just to get some party member? Ryuji is by far the strongest party member in the late game, as he has access to some of the strongest personas such as Beelzebub and Lucifer. If you've played any Persona game, you may recognize this song. This is Aria of the Soul, and it is being performed by Belladonna the singer and Nameless the pianist, residents of the Velvet Room just like Igor. They're present in Persona 1 and 2, but not in any game after, at least not present in view. Now we know Persona was originally a spin-off of ATLUS's Shin Megami Tensei franchise, but more specifically, the main inspiration of Persona 1 comes from SMT If, which also takes place in a high school setting. Another little factoid is that Tamaki, the female protagonist of SMT If, is also present as a minor character in Persona 1 and 2. In fact, she seems to remember the events of SMT If, as if you talk to her, she hands you the weapon she used and seems to be knowledgeable on the demons. The original release of Persona 1 had a soundtrack that fans would describe as more eerie and atmospheric, while the new PSP remaster's soundtrack went for a more pop music feel, similar to that of the more modern Persona games. Take a listen. There are a couple of songs that are present in both soundtracks, one of them being a song called Child Abuse, which plays when you're fighting against this giant robotic rat called Tesso. This boss, Tesso, is a reference to a Japanese myth about a Buddhist monk who fasted to death, and was then reborn as an iron rat that eats everything. The English voice actor for the main character is Grant George, who also voiced in the original Persona 3 as Aragaki in Kurosawa. In Persona 3 Reload, he voices Takaharu Kurijo. You may have even heard his voice in other anime-related media. In Persona 1, there are two major routes your game can go. A Route A and B, so to speak. Most people will probably begin the game playing the Sebek route, as you don't really need to do anything in order to access it. In the Sebek route, after demons are unleashed into the city by the Sebek company, you and your party go after Kandori, the branch president of the infamous Sebek company, in order to get some answers and put a stop to the demons. The other route is the Snow Queen quest, which in order to access, you will have to talk to a bunch of NPCs in the school, and then interact with a box in the gym storage room. In the Snow Queen route, after finding the mask of the Snow Queen, the entire school has been turned to ice, and you must find 12 pieces of a mirror in order to defeat the Snow Queen. Normally, you're unable to play both routes in the same playthrough. Though, interestingly enough, if you get the good ending of the Snow Queen route, Mark will appear at the school gates, urging the team to head to the Sebek building. This implies that it's possible the Sebek route could occur after the Snow Queen quest is finished, but it's not actually playable in this way. Persona 1 actually has 4 endings, a good and bad ending for each route. In the original localization of Revelations Persona, the Snow Queen quest wasn't actually implemented into the game. Fans have speculated that this is due to time constraints. The localization team did not have enough time to translate the entirety of the Snow Queen route and was only able to finish up the Sebek route. The Snow Queen quest is accessible through mods, but all the text is garbled and unreadable. Fortunately, the Snow Queen route is available in the new PSP port. If you've played Persona 5 or games from the SMT franchise, you may recognize the demon negotiation mechanic. This mechanic is also present in Persona 1, where you can talk to demons in order to apply debuffs, receive items, or even obtain a spell card. Though demon negotiation works a little differently than like it does in Persona 5. In Persona 1, each party member has 5 different negotiation actions, which the demon will respond by increasing one or more of these 4 different emotions. Once one of these emotions are filled up, the demon will take action by either attacking you, retreating, or gifting you an item. Did you know, in the Persona 1 manga, the first instance of demon negotiation we see is when Brown tells a tofu pun to some Jack Frosts. The spell cards obtained through demon negotiation can be used with Igor in order to fuse new personas. Igor will call down a big curtain and dial up some personas from the Sea of Souls. Those who heed his call will appear behind the curtain. When playing the game, you may find a casino that goes by the name Judgment 1999. Here you can play games such as blackjack or the slots in order to gain coins to exchange with the cross-dressing clerks, who will give you some pretty strong items. The pharmacy theme song actually uses brainwashing techniques in order to get their patrons to continue shopping at their pharmacy. Your party members, notably Nanjo, will even comment on this. Also, the name Satomi Tadashi comes from the scenario writer for the original Persona games. There's even an obvious insert character in Persona 1 who is called Satomi Tadashi, who happens to be dating the previously mentioned Tamaki. This Satomi Tadashi character is also the son of the owner of the Satomi Tadashi pharmacies, which you can tell the pharmacy is named after him. In the modern Persona games, your characters kinda just awaken to their persona due to some dire situation. But in Persona 1, Philemon, a masked deity, gives you the power of persona through a dream. This Philemon character comes from the writings of Carl Jung, who is referred to as a wise spirit guide. Philemon's design was inspired by Chinese philosopher Chuang Tzu, who wrote The Butterfly Dream, the story's themes reoccurring in the Persona franchise. Hidehiko's nickname Brown comes from the fact he crapped his pants in middle school. The first major boss in the Sebek route, Takeda, Kandori's right-hand man, uses an unknown persona to fight you. We don't know anything about this persona besides what it looks like, and their skills. In the original Persona 1 release, there are these cutscenes of Philemon, which are very goofy looking. CGI was kind of primitive at the time.
It will be up to you to decide which door is the right door.
In the new PSP remaster, most characters in the cutscenes are animated using CGI, but occasionally someone would be hand-drawn in. Not sure why that's the case. Also, interestingly enough, for the Japanese version, these cutscenes are not voiced at all. Instead, the characters are completely silent, but are accompanied with subtitles. At the very start of the game, most of your characters will not have a primary melee weapon equipped. They'll probably be using their fists for the first battle. But there are a few who do have a melee weapon. For instance, before anything spooky happens, Mark decided to bring an axe to a hospital. Why he's carrying that around, I have no idea. Just like the mainline Mega 10 games, enemies in Persona 1 are called demons. Starting in Persona 3, enemies were changed to shadows. At the beginning of the game, instead of going to the hospital like you're supposed to, if you explore the school or town, Yukino will get pissed and let you know that you're wasting time. Persona 1 actually takes place 3 years before Persona 2. This is revealed in Persona 2 when Yukino mentions the Sebek incident. Yukino isn't the only Persona 1 character who appears in Persona 2. Many characters from Persona 1 actually return in the Persona 2 games, and they don't just make a small cameo. They are very integral to the story and are even playable party members. Did you know, in the Snow Queen route, you may find some funny-looking Jack Frosts. The one in the coat is Raiho, a Jack Frost that fused himself with a Bancho uniform. He also appears in another ATLUS game, Devil Summoner Raido vs. the Soulless Army. The other Jack Frost is Reiho, a reference to Rei Reiho from the Devil Summoner series, though in the Japanese version of Persona 1, these guys are actually referred to as Hiho-kun and Hiho-chan. Hiho-kun being a character character from Shin Megami Tensei If, the game that directly inspired Persona 1. Similar to that of Personas of the Fool Arcana, through a fusion accident you can actually create Personas of the World Arcana. These Personas are typically categorized as dragons, strong against physical attacks but weak to almost every magic attack. At the beginning of the game, if you head to the Yin and Yang store, customers will complain that the convenience store does not sell weapons. Not sure why they would, but okay. Towards the halfway point of the Sebek route, you'll head to some other world, which is basically an alternate reality. Well, in this reality, the Yin and Yang store only sells weapons and ammunition. In the Persona series, the protagonist is typically seen as the leader of the party, and this is true for Persona 1. But in the Persona 1 manga, we actually see Kei Nanjo take up the mantle as leader, while the main character, Noya, is more on the sidelines. Towards the beginning of the game, Kei Nanjo's butler, Yamaoka, passes away after defending a nurse from zombies. Well, he makes a return as Nanjo's ultimate persona. Yamaoka can really surf. And those were the facts. I don't usually make videos this long, but if you'd like me to make more videos like this, let me know in the comments. And be sure to like and... I don't really like shilling, so just like, subscribe, and stuff. Thanks. Bye-bye.